can you? That'd be great.
Okay, we're running a little bit late, sorry. All right, it is 2:34 p.m. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Sorry. I know. My bad, running behind. Having one of those days. It is the 9th of May. It is my mother's birthday today. I was hoping the sun would stay out, but at least it was pretty for half the day. So I'm going to do roll call, and with roll call, there is, luckily I'm going to go in an order because at the end of the order there is a new person on the committee, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves.
There's two new persons.
What? Yes. Actually, yeah, sorry, I know you. There's actually a couple new faces, that's true. I will ask them to introduce themselves. I know him pretty well.
It
doesn't seem new to me.
He hasn't been sitting there.
That's true, that is very true. So, new faces. But we'll do a roll call. Ms. Walsh. Here. Mr. Enlinger. Mr. Linderby.
Present.
Mr. Stitch.
Here.
Vincent.
Here. You got my name already?
I was going to call you Jerry. Mr. Van Ho. Present. Here. Ms. McNulty. Present. We do have quorum. So our two new faces today, Mr. Linnell, John Linnell, and he is recently,
No.
okay, no, I guess recently.
Selected, promoted.
There we go, promoted, selected, promoted into the pre-construction engineer position over at the Department of Transportation. Can I do a brief introduction?
Sure. John Linnell, I've been with the department for 24 and a half years or so. I've been an engineer in the state of Alaska for 27 years. Started out my career working for R&M Consultants, did a variety of different work for them around the state, as well for DOT. Moved over to DOT, and there came through their preliminary design, environmental, went to design, then moved to traffic safety and utilities. And 5 years ago, they asked me to move over into the right-of-way section and bring traffic safety utilities with me. And then recently with Mr. Young's appointment to the regional director position, applied for and accepted the pre-construction engineer position at DOT.
Well, welcome. I know you've seen your face in these meetings before, but now you get to sit on this side of you.
Names on the table.
Yeah, exactly. And then Ms. Kilcoy.
Hello, Shana Kilcoy. I'm the Energy and Sustainability Manager for Solid Waste Services, but I work for the entire municipality, and I've been in this position for about a year. My background is really in energy efficiency and renewable energy, but I've been wanting to work more on transportation issues. I'm a biker and a driver, and just very interested in the work that they have.
So last month, actually, part of the meeting minutes was discussion of the air quality position that has kind of, I don't want to say vacant, inactive. We'll say inactive for quite a while, and replacing that. So Ms. McNulty is the one who kind of nominated and recommended this position, coming to this, and it went through policy committee, and so here you are. Thank you very much. Welcome. Yeah. So, all right, public involvement announcements.
All of the AMATS meetings are open to the public. The public will be invited to comments. If we have a business item, we'll have a presentation by staff or a consultant. At that point, the committee will be given a chance to discuss it, and then after that, the public will be invited to comment.
Sorry.
Did you break it?
She did. She doesn't have, she's April agendas and not May's.
And if I could just make a couple of other announcements. One is that if you are going to make a comment, make sure to give us your name and spell the last name if it's confusing for us. And also for the committee members, make sure to speak up nice and clear so we can hear you on the recording. There are only a few microphones, and make sure we get your thoughts.
Okay. Thank you. I know. Guidance on not touching things.
What did you do? That's the
This is
agenda.
today's.
Oh, okay.
This is today's. So it should be, no,
So scroll that.
Oh, okay, come on.
They
No,
don't
I
tell you to click.
I want to fix this.
because it will hopefully bring that, because it looks like you somehow, like, all I have is May's stuff, I think. Okay, let's see what happened. Sorry, technical. Hey, I've been to some of these things.
It's the only space left.
Oh, there you go. Let the record show that Ms. Acton has joined us.
Let the record also show that for the first time in 2 years, we have a full 11-member committee.
Impressive, everybody. We can all shake hands and high five. I know.
Let's do the AMATS chant.
I know, exactly. Secret handshake. All right, so first item for us is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Second.
So moved by Mr. Linden, seconded by Mr. Van Ho. Are there any objections? All right. The agenda is approved. We do have some meeting minutes ahead of us from last month, the 11th of April, 2019.
Second.
Moved by Ms. McNulty, seconded by Mr. Linden. I think we do have some comments, questions on the minutes.
I'll just note that I have to abstain since I wasn't here.
I was also not here.
Okay. So do we we have a motion and second, we can discuss any other needed. Okay. So, Mr. Stitchick, did you have any clarifications you wanted?
More questions than clarifications. So in paragraph 3,
On what page?
oh, I'm sorry, page 4.
Okay.
That would-
Okay.
let's see. About the middle of the paragraph, it says, in addition, there will be a citizens renewable energy group set up, and it will exist independently regardless of any administrative changes. So I believe this is a committee that it has municipal input into municipal planning. But then in Ms. Marmello's comments in paragraph 5, it says there is not a renewable energy committee. So I'm confused as to what we are calling this group if it is not a committee, and who will chair it and what advisory role it has, or what to whom it reports.
Okay, point of clarification, I guess. This was still, I think this was still a miscommunication and a misunderstanding that is probably accurately represented in the minutes. I guess the question is whether or not you want to get a clarification, because this has brought up the question you had last month.
Right.
Okay, so I don't know that there's any changes necessary to the minutes themselves.
Not changes, just
Okay.
I'm confused as to the status of the committee and what its reporting role is. or what
Okay.
it-
So I have a question. Can we,
Well, you have a motion on the floor to
Yes, I
approve
know.
these minutes. I
Don't
think we
So
need
we-
to deal with that
I
first.
know that's what I was going to do, and then we
back
can
and answer
come
the
back to that
question.
thing. Okay, are there any objections to the approval of the minutes? Okay. Then those meeting minutes are approved, but I guess we can follow up on your question, because he did ask if when we were discussing and nominating the role, about there possibly being a citizens renewable energy group established. And then we followed up about that, really we stated that there was not a renewable energy committee at that time. So,
I think I'm going to summarize, and Shane is probably going to need to answer, but, so in the discussion about recommending you for the appointment, there was a concern about the position, and, you know, if they're that position, if the next administration would keep that position on board. And as we had learned earlier that day, before the meeting last month, it was my understanding, I just mentioned to them that my understanding was that they were going to be a citizen advisory group that was outside of the municipality, that you would be a member of, and that the intent was that that could withstand any administration, so that it wouldn't be tied to the administration, to keep the plan, the climate action plan moving forward. And I think that Mr. Schmidt had asked, sorry,
Don't worry about it.
just if, whether or not, I think that at the time, that that committee was in existence and we didn't know the answer to that. So just a summary of what that conversation was.
Yeah, I think I can clarify. The committee is the Climate Action Council for Anchorage. It is an external committee that has not been developed yet. And the idea is the external council will can advise on the climate action plan and can submit recommendations, but they won't actually have, they won't actually be able to like change or modify the climate action plan. And so, yeah, one of the ideas is, depending on what happens with the next administration, this external body can still exist and can still, be the voice of the people for the climate action plan.
Will you serve on that council?
I think probably I would, as a member of the municipality.
Thank you.
It hasn't been developed yet, and there's not a process for the seats for it yet.
Okay. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm just
Okay.
trying to understand where that exists, what it is.
And I think it's still something that we don't quite know yet, but
Got it.
it sounds like her role definitely would serve, representing the municipality, so.
Yes, and just, the climate action plan was introduced this week at the assembly, but they hopefully will take it up on the 21st at their regular meeting.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving right along, the first item we have before us is action item 5A, the Citizens Advisory Committee appointment.
So, as you remember, the Citizen Advisory Committee has a representative from each assembly district, and we are missing a position or person for the District 6. The district that Mr. Weddleton happens to represent. And he came up with a suggested name for filling that position, which is Mike Fenster. And it looks like it would be a very good fit, so staff is recommending that you folks recommend to the policy committee Mr. Fenster's appointment. He's quiet, former team.
Mr. Essential.
You don't believe so?
All right, are there any comments or questions on this item? I'm gonna go travel with you.
Sounds like kind of fun.
All right, are there any comments or questions from the public on this item? Hearing none, matter lies with the committee.
Move to approve.
Is that you, Jamie? Yes. Okay, moved by Mr. Hanson, seconded by Ms. Atkins. Are there any opposed to forwarding this appointment to the AMATS Policy Committee? All right. Hearing none, we are so moved. So next item, 5B, is the 2019 to 2022 TIP Administrative Application number 1. Oh,
So-
starting over.
Start all over again.
Carrying on the tradition of making sure we don't have a tip sit out there for very long without somehow tweaking it a little bit. We have a few changes need to be made. We were just a little balancing needed in Table 3, which is the whole program, and oftentimes we take tiny little bits of extra money that we have to move around that can't be a full project. Usually moving into pavement replacement. This time we're doing pavement replacement, but through the area-wide trails and pathways, et cetera. So same sort of thing, just in a different little pot of money over there. In Table 4, which is plans and studies, we have the project that was nominated by the long-range planning section of the planning department, the 2040 secondary street efficiency analysis, and then looking at the ability to come up with the required 10% local match for the project and other projects that were already in 2019 for the trying to come up with those matches. We just couldn't get it all in. So the suggestion was, let's move that project to 2020, and then we should be able to come up with an match for that in 2020 and the other things that we need to come up with in 2019. So that's that suggestion there. And then in Table 11, which is other federal, state, et cetera projects, we put a lot of grants and earmarks in here. In this case, the Public Transportation Department had applied for an FTA grant related to transitioning to electric battery-powered buses. They did not get that grant, but they did get a different one on bus and bus facility infrastructure investment. So they have to be shown in our tip, even though it's not part of the AMATS allocation, but it just needs to be shown because it's federally funded. And so we need to add in the one on the facilities infrastructure investment and take out the one on the electric battery-powered buses infrastructure upgrades.
Still the same scope?
Two different scopes.
Two totally different.
They were
Totally
just
different projects.
two grants that were applied for. This one wasn't received, this one was. When you did the tip previously, we added in the one on the electric buses, but this one wasn't in the pipeline at the time, so. And that's about it. We are asking that you recommend approval to this policy. Miss anything, Aaron?
On the first page, under Table 4, Plans and Studies, where it says 2015, it should say 2019.
I wasn't missing anything. I did skip.
I figured somebody in this room would point it out, so I wanted to catch it on.
Good call. Are there any other questions from the committee? No?
Yeah, I'm looking for it. I don't see anything here, Aaron. Maybe you could point it out. In the original tip, it was, in the original document, it was temporarily approved because of the construction missing from the study that we're doing. Did we include a construction for the second phase of Midtown congestion? Because they said they weren't going to approve a new amendment without that construction phase added.
Yes, it is added in there for the Seward to Glen Highway PEL design. Yes, there is $1 million in the estimated funding needs after 2020 on Table 2. The second page of Table 2, under roadway 00009. Sorry, I forgot to include that in the memo.
Very good.
But it is in the document, which is the governing document.
Yes, and you'll know that we condensed some of the outer years into one single year, similar to what the STIP shows, to make it a little easier because it was getting confusing. Because people are like, are you going to have this done by 2024? Are you sure? Oh, no, there's too much with it, so we tried to make it a little easier. So that was another pretty big change. And another requirement that was in there from the DOT on approval was adding the STIP numbers to the projects that are outside the allocation where needed. We did that with every project where possible. There are some that are missing because they're state funded, so I didn't know how that was supposed to be done, but we can add that in later if need be.
Okay.
So Table 2 also has the change?
Yes. So in the document, anywhere where we consolidated the outer years into one single year, you'll see a red under estimated funding needs after such and such year. So that's where we made the change for that.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. So that whole column is
I mean, there was a column in there before, but it was estimated funding needs after 2024. So it was 4 years of the TIP that are the actual fiscal constraint, 2 years of illustrative, and then a third column that was kind of everything after those 2 illustrative years. And those 2 illustrative years were just causing too much confusion as to what was going forward, and people thinking that's when we were going to actually construct something when that was just a guess.
Okay. Thank you for clarification. Any other questions? Are there any public comments on this item? Please state your name for the record.
James Starzek, Starzec. I was just curious, the changes that were made, did any of those affect the bottom line section totals?
No.
It looks like they were swaps. Is that correct?
Yes, everything is still, we have to be fiscally constrained.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't have brought it forward if it wasn't fiscally constrained.
Okay. Any other public comments? Hearing none, then I'll ask the committee.
I move to approve.
With the correction of the 2015
So So moved by Ms. McNulty, seconded by Ms. Marilini. Both okay with that minor change of 2015 to 2019? Are there any objections to the motion? Hearing none. Okay, that will be forwarded to the policy committee for approval. Moving right along. So we have project plans and updates, the 2040 MTP update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, I'm Vivian Underwood. I'm with AMATS. I'm the project manager for this. This is our 4-year, every 4 years we develop this plan. It's a 20-year long-range transportation plan that addresses non-motorized transit and road projects, plus strategies and other things to bring together a complete package for the next 20 years. Of course, we do it every 4 years, so we'll be updating it again pretty soon. We're in the final phase of this project, and we have been working very closely with the committees to develop a draft preferred alternative list of projects, and we're focusing on roadway project and roadway non-motorized transit. Our next work section will be on Monday, May 13th from 2 to 4, and I hope that each of you received the invitation and was able to accept if you can be there. So we appreciate your input.
Thank you. Any questions for Vivian? Any comments from the public? Thank you, Vivian. Is there any general information for the good of the order? No, any committee? I know. I almost feel like I need to say something. No. Any committee comments?
I have comment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just speaking of transportation, Queen Elizabeth is arriving on May 16th, a week from today, transporting 2,000 souls. They're going to spend about 8 hours in town. I think it's the biggest cruise ship we've ever had. It's 900 feet long, several decks high, so that's going to be exciting. We are starting our cruise ship season, so we'll have, about every 2 weeks, we'll have, after this, we'll have the usual America cruise ship on Mondays mostly. Also, we're kicking off actual construction on the Port of Alaska modernization project. We're doing south backland stabilization and the transitional dredging out in front of where the petroleum cement terminal is going to be, and the pile driving for this small south floating dock for its new area. Also out on the street right now is the bid for the trestle portion of the petroleum cement terminal. So that'll open in June-ish, end of May, first part of June. And but we won't have construction on that until next year because it takes them about 9 months to order the pipeline. So otherwise, we'll be doing our regular, try to prop up the port type projects. We have had some earthquake damage. We've determined since we were able to finally get back under the dock. We had a couple piling kind of corkscrew open, like if you took a crescent roll thing and went smack. We had some piling that went phew. We still have integrity. We have redundancy, but it's not a pretty sight. Oh, that's what's going on at the Port of Alaska.
Any other committee comments? Now that I'm scared. Mr. Van Hoek?
Yes, all the fiscal constraint folks for the state of Alaska met yesterday and the day before to discuss our current status of the fiscal obligation plan for the state of Alaska. And we also met and discussed STIP and Amendment 2s and Amendment 3 that is currently in the works. Bottom line on Amendment 3, Amendment 2 was recently signed. There was basically just a balancing act, kind of like what we do with this TIP. Amendment 3, unfortunately, is going to be pretty much the same thing. No new projects, no changes, more balancing. We discussed pushing out the community transportation program, which most folks are interested in. And we have a schedule for that, as well as a schedule for a new STIP, which will begin this fall.
Is this information?
Probably not yet.
Okay, not yet. Well, you did just meet yesterday.
Correct.
Oh, come on. Is it usually on?
Yeah, well, there'll be a public notice.
Okay. All right. Any other committee comments? I know that you want to announce the 2040 meeting? Oh, yeah.
We have the 2040 land use open house on May 14th. So it's going to be a time for the planning department, mostly long-range and current planning, to just kind of talk about different ordinances that we're putting forward. So the two big ones are the R2 zoning district. It's a small multifamily district. We're doing an amendment to that existing code language, and also to for multifamily development for internal driveways and circulation, really helping with more efficient land patterns, and also just cleaning up some confusion that we have between different sections of code and building code. But I encourage everybody to attend. I think there's about 12 different topics that are going to be discussed on action items that we're putting forward from the 2040 plan. So Spinard Rec Center, May 14th, 6:30 to 8. And there's going to be cookies and oranges.
I guess that means I should announce Transit on the Move is kicking off its next round of public meetings. We start tonight at City Hall at 5:30, and we've got events that are running throughout the community until May 17th. So this is our short-range transit plan that we kicked off, and it's basically looking at what's coming next, what's happening now that we've done the system redesign, and what does the community want to see next. So, Art, you add anything else to?
Yeah,
I don't know if we're having cookies or oranges, but.
yeah, you do get to vote on your favorite routes.
And you get to draw routes. So if you have some route ideas, bring them to us.
But I will say that transit ridership has increased every month for the past 9 months, except for one. So it's since our new system's been in place. So.
Congratulations.
Bart Rudolph.
It's all Bart's fault.
It's all his fault, he says.
We made them talk.
Yeah.
First question,
Yeah.
sewer.
There'd be something.
Hey.
Yeah.
Are on their way. Passenger trains start, our full suite of passenger trains starts Saturday. Which I think there's around.
Yes.
One of that, we're doing gets people off of gravel trains.
Love the Dowling.
Well, it's DOT's fault. DOT's running 2 trains a day, so it shifts. All to try to keep airplanes from not having to fly. So,
I have to tell you, ever since the Dowling extension, I have no concern about it.
yeah,
It's
it's about a lot.
amazing the way driving patterns change, so. It's
We
going.
do have our federal certification review coming up June 10th to the 13th, so next month we will do that 10th, 11th, 12th. And you have your TAC meeting on Thursday, and I'm sure they'll do their usual and present some preliminary thoughts on it. It's a very different version than they did in the past. What they used to do is send a questionnaire that had 80-something odd questions covering everything under the sun. They ask for all sorts of documents, and they really want to get away from that. So they're focusing on some 4 main areas. In addition to looking at the recommendations that were in the last certification in 2015, we didn't have the corrective actions, so we said recommendations turn into corrective actions if you ignore them completely, so we didn't ignore any of them. So that it should go fairly well, but it is next month, and we just got that information today, so get ready for it.
So the NHI course, that's mobility management, that's that week and here. It's like in this building, in this room. Is that part of this whole process, or is that completely separate?
No, we got approached by NTI, the National Transit Institute, to hold the course here.
Okay.
So another potential change on that audit will be both FHWA, FTA, as well as by planning program will be visiting as well.
It's an audit by, the certification review is FHWA and FTA, usually John Lowry from Federal Highways, Ned Conroy from FTA, and then someone from the Resource Center. I'm not sure who the third person is. They may not do a third person, just in terms of funding availability. But, yeah.
So what gets audited? Is it roadway?
Every 4 years, the feds come in and make sure you're following all the planning processes, the rules, following the code of federal regulations, all that sort of stuff. They do that for every MPO around the country. It's potentially possible that you could be decertified if you are just nothing but a bunch of corrective action. So I've never heard of it happening, but they just want to make sure you're, dotting the i's and crossing the t's. So.
I'm sure your triennial is right after ours in July, or right before ours.
We're in August.
Or in August, maybe it's
August
August.
8th and 9th.
Yeah, I think ours is 6th, 7th.
Okay. Any other community comments?
Well, we mentioned the climate action plan earlier, so I'll just say about that. There is a whole chapter on land use and transportation. And from our conversations with most of our departments, there's really not anything that's, pretty much everything in there is aligned with what we're already doing. And it's just about creating more modes of transportation, more bike and pedestrian paths, and opportunities for people to get from A to B. But if anybody would like to talk to me about it and go through specifically that sector or any of it, happy to talk with many of the people in this room about it. So hopefully people are familiar.
Thank you. And it can be found on the municipality website.
Correct.
So if you haven't seen it, look at it.
That's good.
All right. Are there any public comments?
Wow.
I think we're setting a record, but all right, we will adjourn. Yeah.
It looks